Okay, that was fun. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to episode 1014 of BD4. Thank you for stopping by, coming to the podcast. The New York Knicks bounced back after a miserable loss against the Cavs the other day, and last night they defeated the Milwaukee Bucks in Milwaukee 127-98. Giannis did not play, injured, and so the Knicks took full advantage of that, and they beat the brakes off the Bucks. They went buck hunting. Thought of that one myself. And they pretty much from start to finish. I mean, this game wasn't close. Personally, I didn't see the game live. I had to attend to something, but I watched it back on film when I got back home. And I went over a lot of different things, and that's what we're going to discuss. But this was an easy win for a good team against a bad team. And that's kind of your big picture takeaway. But there's a lot of stuff still that we should be reiterating in this episode that can help the Knicks maintain success going forward that I want to get into. So I think it'd be only right to start this episode off, though, by just first mentioning the one who made this thing out of hand or made this thing a laugher from the get-go, and that's Jalen Brunson, man. The captain of this organization went nuts last night. 27 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. He shot 11 for 17 from the floor, 4 for 6 on his threes, 7 of 11 on his twos. That was nice. He was a plus 15 across 31 minutes, earning his 27th game ball of the season. Jalen Brunson completely setting the tone there in the first quarter with 22 of his 27 points. And he was just doing it in a variety of ways, as he always does. He was scoring on smalls. He was scoring on a couple of wings. He was scoring on bigs. Our old pal Jericho was getting scored on, and so was Miles Turner. Scoring on open looks, scoring in transition, or scoring in traffic. And yeah, and this is why, when I say scoring in traffic, this is why I always talk about how Brunson with Josh Hart or with Mitch Robinson or with both of them is much better and much more preferred than when you pair Cat with Josh or with Mitch or with both of them. Because Jalen Brunson has that type of talent. Brunson is not a big. Brunson is he's a shifty point guard who's very capable of creating space out of nothing or scoring in that traffic. He can do it very well. He doesn't need optimal spacing. I mean, this guy played alongside Barrett and Randall, right, for a bit. So in my opinion, I want to kind of transition into talking about this rotation because I thought last night was a good, perfect example of it. And we've talked about this, but I think there are 3 distinct rotations, like 3 rotation identities that the Knicks should lean into going forward. 3 rotations with a couple of staples in each of them that you put players around. All right. So when I say 3 distinct rotation identities going forward, I'm talking about their 5-out rotations, their rotations with Cat and Mitch and Hart's off the floor, and then the rotations with Hart and Mitch and Cat's off the floor. Right? So the 5-out rotations, those are the ones I think we've all been asking for a lot more than we've been getting. I think it's pivotal to for this team to find their success. I think that needs to be the rotation that gets the big minutes in the playoffs. Just to maximize matchups and switches for the Brunson Cat dynamic, to maximize floor space, to open up drives and spray opportunities. That needs to be a lineup the Knicks go to more often. I also think playing Cat and Mitch together with Hart off the floor is a great rotation to go to because it puts Cat back at the 4 on defense, even if he's at the 4 on offense, right? You can use Mitch there to guard pick and roll. And then you're using Mitch to screen for Cat, even if he's at the 4 on offense, right? Mitch is a really good screener, helps Cat get room for those 3-point looks. And it's something I think Mike Brown should go to even more. And then the last part is your rotation that consists of Josh Hart and Mitch Robinson playing together and Cat off the floor, right? This is something that you would go to crash the glass, to commit to defense, and to play with pace, to lean into physicality, right? And even if it's like Hart, Mitch, and Cat all together for a minute or two like we saw last night, that's fine in short spurts against certain teams, but especially if Brunson's out there. But what the Knicks cannot do, at least for extended stretches, is blend these identities, right? Like playing Hart and Cat together doesn't make a ton of sense. We've talked about it all season. We're not going to dive too deep into that, but you play them two together. Now Cat doesn't have the big on him on offense while he still has to play 5 on defense, right? It doesn't make sense. And they can work together, as you saw last night, right? There are, like, when the Knicks are playing defense and when the Knicks are pushing the pace off those defensive possessions, that's how you do it, right? But that requires a lot more work, and it's not the most sustainable thing to keep doing that. But bottom line is, I think what we saw last night is the Knicks, at least Mike Brown, leading closer to picking a lane, right? It's all about just pick a lane and double down on what actually works best, right? But that's the thing about this roster, like a lot of people, it bothers me because like Knicks fans will criticize and be like, the Knicks don't have the pieces. Of course they've got the pieces. They're very talented. They can play with multiple identities. That's the whole thing. They can play with each of those 3 different lineups, and you saw examples of that in this game last night. Top of the second quarter, all throughout the second quarter, I thought the second quarter was a really good example of the flexibility that Mike Brown can use in his rotation, because at the very beginning of the period, the Knicks won 5 out, right? It was Alvarado, it was Bridges, it was Anunoby, it was Diawara, and it was Towns. They won 5 out. How much of a 5 out lineup is that with Mo? He hasn't had that respect yet, but he is shooting well. And they went to a 5 out lineup to start the second quarter, and they outscored the Bucks 8-2. And then right after they took that lineup out, they went to the lineup with Mitch and Cat without Josh Hart. And then that lineup outscored Milwaukee 10-9, which is good. That's a good score for non-Brunson minutes. For non-Brunson minutes, you want to stay even. And they did. They were up 1 in those minutes. And then late in the second quarter, you had Brunson, Hart, Mitch without Cat. And that lineup outscored Milwaukee 10-6 in that stint. Saw some good offense, saw some good defense. The transition game was on point. You had Hart going to OG on the post, who went back out to Shamet for a wing 3. I loved that possession in transition. And it's not just the transition offense, because, again, when you have Brunson out there, even though 2 guys who shrink the floor are on the half court with you, Brunson's actually really good at creating space. And he's able to use his own big in pick and roll to create good space. Unlike when it's Cat and Hart together, Hart's going to have the big. But since Mitch is always going to have the big when he's on the floor, he used Mitchell Robinson to get some good looks. The Knicks ran a couple of empty pick and rolls, and they flowed that into good offense. And on top of that, we continue to see that the starter minutes, the Brunson, McHale, OG, Hart, Cat, those remain not great minutes. And last night it was more of the same. mainly defense that held them back last night. But just to prove a further point, I think the three identities that this Knicks team needs to lean into is the ones that we just said. It's Brunson, Cat, and or Brunson, Hart, and Mitch, right? It is Cat and Mitch without Hart, and it's the 5-out lineup. So they do that. It's just doubling down on strengths. It's not playing in between, and I think that's when the Knicks can get hurt. But speaking of all the cross-matching stuff, I thought the Knicks handled that pretty effectively too when it happened. Milwaukee was putting Miles Turner, who's their big man, they put him on Josh last night, and they put their wing on Cat. So Milwaukee could switch their two wings on those Brunson Cat pick and rolls, and they could also help in the lane off of Josh. But I thought they did a really good job countering that last night. I mean, you saw right away Josh Hart being super aggressive in the half court, and the Knicks were just playing good defense, and that was helping them play and get out in transition. When you do that with Hart out there on the floor, sharing the floor with Mitch, like we said, when you play in transition, it prevents the defense from setting up those cross matches and those help coverages in the half court. You're not allowing that. So if you're playing fast all the time like that, you have the advantage. And the Knicks won the fast break game last night, 23-5. There was a lot of really good fast break possessions when the Knicks were just, right off a rebound to the pass, swing, and then they just make a trail three or just a three in momentum going the other way. You had McHale going to Hart for a transition layup in the first quarter. You had another possession in the first quarter in transition where it was Hart who goes to Shamet, who goes to Brunson for a transition corner. Second quarter, Cat, I thought, was making some really good passes, rebounding, stopping possessions, getting the Knicks out. You had one, it was Cat to McHale to OG for a transition corner. You had Cat to McHale to Alvarado for a transition layup. You had Cat to Brunson to Hart to Shamet for another transition wing three. And the Hart and Mitch lineups were working, like we mentioned. And that was all plenty enough to put this game out of reach by the time we got to the second half. But what I really loved was to start this game, you saw Josh Hart taking those open three-point looks. And when he takes the looks that Milwaukee gave him, that's going to force eventual closeouts, right? The Knicks were going to the Brunson Hart pick and roll so Brunson could get the switch onto the big, but the Bucks weren't conceding the switch. They weren't giving him the switch. So instead, when the ball went back out to Hart off the pick and roll, Hart took the open threes with the big man and drop. The first few minutes, Hart was being super aggressive, and he took, I think, 3 3-point attempts in the first few minutes of the first quarter. And because he did that, because he took those open threes that the Bucks gave him, what happened the rest of the way? Well, there was a possession midway through the first quarter after Hart took those threes. Brunson makes a weak side pass to Hart, who's on the wing. Turner now has to close hard to him. And that hard closeout allows Josh to drive the closeout and put Turner behind, finish at the basket. And you saw that the rest of the way. Now, Josh didn't score the rest of the way, but the lanes were getting open for him the rest of the night because he took threes often and with confidence at the top of this game. And when you do that, that's when you start forcing those closeouts. Now, he still did pass up some threes for mid-range looks that you don't love. He likes to do that, but for the most part, I thought that helped. Now, is every defense going to adjust mid-game like that, and especially in a playoff setting? No. We have already seen Detroit. We've already seen Boston not care. They're going to let him shoot those threes, and they're going to leave him open from quarter 1 to quarter 4. But against teams like this, they're not going to play you that smart. They're going to start closing out to you because a lot of it is just natural to them. So Hart took advantage, and I thought that helped a lot. Some other good offensive things I want to talk about in just a sec. We're going to head to a quick break. Stay with us.
Quick break here, guys. Stay connected with BD4 on social media. Follow us on Instagram and X at BD4Pod, and find us on Facebook by searching BD4. Don't miss out. Join the conversation. Want more BD4? Subscribe to our YouTube channel and never miss an episode. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and share with your fellow fans. Don't forget to ring that bell so you're always the first to know when a new video drops.
Okay. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to episode 1014. Speaking of the Knicks offense clicking on all cylinders, I thought the Knicks did a really good job last night as well, hitting Towns early. We talk about this a lot, especially when Kolek was part of the rotation earlier in the year, how he's very good at doing that and how it's very important to hit Cat immediately off the pick and roll to avoid the scram switch, right? To avoid them recovering off the ball screen, switching it back, and to get the small on the post for Cat. And I thought you saw this become very evident throughout the game. Middle of the second quarter, Cat still got the 5 on him. He has Jericho on him. And again, he's in pick and roll with Hart. Cat seals the post immediately off the ball screen. Hart goes right to Cat as he posts the small, and then Cat gets downhill on him, and he ends up making a really nice bullet weak side pass to Shamet, who knocks down a corner. That's just a good example of Cat using his size advantage. Hart hits him right away, so they can't switch it back. He's still got the small on him, so he uses his advantage on the small to post him, get closer to the basket, then make the weak side kick to Shamet. And then with a couple of seconds left in the first half, before you get to halftime, it's like 5 seconds left. High pick and roll between Brunson and Cat. The Bucks are late to switch it, so Cat gets downhill with a full head of steam on Jericho Sims. Easy finish for him. There was another play actually very early in the second quarter. Cat's got the big. He's got Jericho on him again. It's another Hart Cat pick and roll. The Bucks blitz Hart off the ball screen. I don't know if it was a blitz or just a switch that was very late. But Hart immediately finds Cat on the roll to beat the switch. Cat gets a finish at the basket. Now, what's interesting about this action, though, and this was pointed out on Twitter by DJ Ace NBA. Really good point. So it was a Hart Cat empty pick and roll on the first side, but you had weak side action with Shamet and Mitch setting staggers for Mikhail to curl on the second side. And if the Knicks timed this action correctly, which they did not, but if they paired, if the pick and roll and the staggers were in sync at once, then their low man helper, I think it was Portis, would have to decide, all right, do I want to tag the roll or do I want to help weak side to take away the curl? That would usually leave the Knicks open in one of those actions. At least one Knick, either Mikhail or Cat, would have a wide open opportunity. And also, if you do watch the action back, it's another one of those possessions that we talked about where you prefer Cat to pop the empty side there instead of rolling into the help. But regardless, the point of bringing this possession up was because I love the immediately hit. I love that Hart immediately hit Cat off the pick and roll. That's what the Knicks need to do more. They need to not only find him, but you got to make the quick hit to him so the defense can't recover. I thought OG Anunoby was huge. I mean, we haven't even mentioned the kid's name yet. One of his better two-way games in a long time. Certainly his best game since returning. 24 points last night on 8 for 10 shooting. Really good job playmaking. He had 3 assists, but he was passing well all night. The shot-making return, though. I think that was the thing that was really good to see for me, because since his return, entering last night in the last 4 games, he was 4 out of 25, 16% on threes. Last night, he goes 5 for 7 from 3. So you knew that was going to come sooner rather than later. I wouldn't be too shocked if he gets hot here now. But he was great offensively. And again, two-way game for him. He was doing a nice job defensively, creating turnovers. He had 2 steals, but OG is key to this whole thing. We've said it before. They need him to be right on both sides of the ball. And you combine his two-way play with what you can get from Mikal when he's right, and what you've been getting from friggin' Landry Shamet, man. And Landry Shamet continues to just be rock solid for them. And he now has 9 game balls on the season. Going to give him the game ball from off the bench. 15 points last night. 3 assists. 5 for 7 shooting. A plus 20 in the box score. He plays 23 minutes. The point of attack defense. We talk about it every night, I feel. The timely shot making. Listen, he is not Deuce McBride. Okay, so he doesn't have that same off-ball gravity. When he is 1 pass away from the action, it's not like when Deuce is 1 pass away from the action where he's going to draw that defender an extra step up because he's got a little more range. But still, his shot making is starting to get a little more respect. And he's hit some timely shots, man. In this game alone, I mean, he had a 3-pointer to break the tie in the first quarter. He had a 3-pointer to break a 3.5-3-minute stretch where the Knicks didn't make a basket in the second quarter. And you're seeing him take some of Mikal's minutes in stints too. And then he had a 3-point shot that he knocked down to snap a 9-2 Milwaukee run in the third quarter where they were knocking down 3 after 3. So Shamet's been hitting shots. He's been playing defense. He's been clutch. So I got to give him the game ball from off the bench. He now has, again, 9 on the season. But that's pretty much it for this game. So we're going to head to a quick final break, get back, wrap it up by talking about who's up next on the schedule, and get to our trivia. Stay with us. Be back in 1 minute. Not even a minute. Be back in a few seconds.
Love BD4 but don't have the time to sit down and watch? Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leave us a 5-star rating and a quick review. It helps us grow and keeps the conversation going.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Episode 1014 of BD4. I appreciate you all tuning in. Your Knicks are back out there tomorrow afternoon, which is pretty soon because it's pretty late at night as I'm recording here. As I'm recording, technically it's past midnight now, so it's actually March 1st. But so this afternoon, I suppose, they are back at the Garden to host Wemby and the Spurs. So those two teams have had some fun games. The Knicks obviously beat them in the Cup, and the Spurs got the best of them last time. But this time we'll be back at the Garden, and I'm excited for it. So that's what's tomorrow. And no trivia, actually. I don't have a trivia written down here. I forgot to take one. Here, I'll think of one right now. Let's see. When was the last time the Knicks lost a season series to the Bucks? When was the last time the Knicks lost a regular season series to the Bucks? All right, that is our trivia. I appreciate you all for tuning in. I always do. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is, social media. I do appreciate you checking out the show. And I'll see you all on the next show. Later. Hey guys, thank you for listening to BD4. Be sure to follow us on social media, subscribe to us on YouTube, and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time.